You're listening to The Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
I'm excited to share a new series with our listeners on adoption. Just love sharing adoption stories. So excited to partner with our friends at Lutheran Family Service in Iowa, who have shared so graciously some of the families that have partnered with them for adoption. So looking forward to sharing the stories with you today. Thanks to Concordia University, Wisconsin for supporting the Coffee Hour. Find out more about Concordia University, Wisconsin at cuw.edu.
Live uncommon.
Joining us today, the Hansen family, Travis and Katie. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So tell us a little bit about the Hansen family before adoption was before your adoption in your family.
Well, I think both Travis and I just individually kind of had a lot of professional lives before we even got married. We didn't get married until we were in mid-30s. So we were very kind of absorbed in our professions, and then got married and, kind of did a lot of like small travels within the Midwest, went to Ireland for our honeymoon, did a lot of outdoor activities, running, biking, kind of absorbed in, kind of the exploration part of life together in our early marriage.
They run and they bike, Sarah. See, they're
Perfect.
Friends with us already. So Sarah's the bicyclist and I'm the runner. So.
Oh, nice. Well, we definitely don't do as much of that as we used to. But yeah.
Not that we were bikers and runners, I hope.
So when did you begin thinking about adoption?
What was it, about 3 years into our marriage? So we had tried having a baby and doing some medical routes. So we didn't quite get to in vitro, but we explored that route with no real luck. So after a couple of years of actually trying and essentially striking out, we started looking at other options, and adoption came up once. So we were traveling, it came up, Katie brought it up, and I think I was at that point wasn't ready for it. But she got the topic started. So after a couple months of kind of mulling it over and thinking about the benefits and what it would look like, we talked to a couple of friends and family and decided to go forward with it.
What made adoption important for you?
I think, kind of selfishly early on, we just really wanted to start a family. And it seemed, the typical routes just weren't working. In terms of like the infertility stuff, just felt very defeated, in all of those routes, with just not really having any answers as to why we weren't able to get pregnant naturally. So I think, honestly, it was kind of selfish to start, where it was just like, hey, I think this, seems like a way for us to gain a family. And now just like looking back on it, what an amazing, miracle adoption is, which is really cool. So.
So how did you first learn about Lutheran Family Service?
That was really through our pastor. Pastor Keith was one of the people kind of early on that we sat down with and just said, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking. Do you have, somebody that you've worked with, or do you know of anybody that would be a safe place to kind of start? And we really just wanted information. And we had kind of heard some things, in terms of other stories and things we had read online that, there's some organizations out there that maybe aren't the most trustworthy. So we really started with our pastor to try and find somebody that we felt like we could confide in and trust to begin with. And he suggested Lutheran Family Service, and they've certainly been a huge, source for us and support very much through the whole process.
So thinking back to first making that connection with Lutheran Family Service? Was it a phone call? Was it a visit? What do you remember about that initial connection with Lutheran Family Service?
I just remember sitting down in Carrie Smith's office and going through questions, feeling, uncertain, trying to figure out what what we were actually doing and how this process was going to look, and feeling a lot of, just out of control, that there's the situation itself. We just didn't have, we were just kind of along for the ride. And that kind of started at the very beginning. And it is definitely a theme that goes throughout the adoption process.
Mm-hmm. What were some things that that maybe you thought it would be like that it ended up being completely different?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one of the things for me is after we left that first initial face-to-face meeting, there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of kind of things to go through just to verify that you would be, a good fit as parents and to start a family. And while that's, totally appropriate, there was just a lot of things that we kind of had to check off the list. So I remember leaving, I can remember walking out from Carrie's office just in the parking lot and telling Travis, hey, I want to get moving on this. Let's just start checking off all these things on the list that we need to do before we could even be, a fit set of parents for a possible adoptive mother or birth mother. And so I felt like just having that attitude, I was like, okay, this is going to happen for us. It's going to be, it's going to be here before we know it. And we did all those things in, I think, a fairly quick amount of time, that we could. And then it was just a long wait. So I think to me, that was one of those things that I wasn't expecting. I just felt like it's going to happen quickly. And it was, it was a while. We waited a while. So.
Yeah. So it was a hurry up and wait.
Yeah. Hurry up and wait
Yeah.
was the theme. It was, and I think our first experience with a potential match was a call that we got. I think it was a middle of the week. Luckily, we were both working at the same place at the time, so it was easy to get together and talk. But we had to have an answer that afternoon because I think the mother was looking at books the next morning and was due, or her due date was within that next week or so. So it was a lot of not hearing or, nothing going on. And then all of a sudden life-changing decision has to be made in hours. So yeah, the roller coaster is definitely a thing.
Other than being difficult and maybe even painful waiting after having done all the paperwork and going through, checking off all the things on the list, what else did you do during that time, or what did you learn during that period of waiting? It's hard to wait.
Yeah. And I think, again, Carrie, was a big help in that. She would, make visits just for things that we needed to check up on and whatnot. But this is the part that makes me super emotional. I don't know if I can get through is I just felt like our plan, what we thought was supposed to be for our family, God's plan was just way better. So, I think it took a while to get to that point, but I did have a little bit of I definitely had a sense of calming and peace about the fact that, hey, what I envisioned in my mind, ever since, probably a 16-year-old girl that kind of imagines her family, what I had in my mind was it was not going to look that way. But I knew that God had a better plan and it was going to be more amazing. I was just not there yet. It just wasn't there yet. So that's the part of waiting I think was really hard, but at the same time, important and also very, faith building, I guess.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the things that that were on that checklist? Some of the things that you had to prepare before you could bring a child into your home?
Well, the one that I think took us the longest and that we discussed at length. There's, I don't know, it was probably a 3 or 4 page questionnaire on what you would accept and what you wouldn't accept. And I think that was kind of the eye-opening part of it. It's like, we're not here to select, the perfect child. We're here to take what God is or has intended for us. So again, just kind of that faith building moment of it's in his hands, not ours.
I was going to ask what's most challenging, but I think you've already poured out your hearts of, what seems to have been most challenging about this process. Was there anything else that was challenging? Maybe, I don't know whether emotionally challenging or just a lot of work to prepare for.
I think once we kind of had, I think every adoption story is super unique. I think Carrie told us that many times, and just in the, people we've talked to since, it seems like no story is exactly the same. So I think saying no, Ruthie, our daughter, she wasn't the very first one that we were presented with. There were just some other situations that just didn't seem to fit in our family and the way it looked, or didn't make us feel comfortable, like it was the right time to say yes. But at the same time, it's really difficult, especially during that waiting time when that's really what you're waiting for, and you're presented with a situation and you have to say no. So I would say that is also a big challenge. And we're actually kind of, we're on the list to do this again. I would say for, number 2, it's a little easier because now we get to choose kind of on Ruthie's behalf. Before it just felt like we were choosing for us, and now we're choosing for her sibling. So I don't even know if choosing is the right word, but like being presented with some possibilities, and I guess choosing to say no or choosing to say yes. This is also kind of a difficult part of the whole process.
What a story. And we have more to share. You're listening to the Coffee Hour in our adoption series. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
You're a miracle. You know that, right? A living, breathing, one-of-a-kind miracle. You were created to stand apart, to share your gifts in the service of others, to make an uncommon impact in a common world. And at Concordia University, it's our mission to help you do that, to live uncommon. To learn more about Concordia, go to cuw.edu.
Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
We are sharing an adoption series with our wonderful friends from Lutheran Family Service in Iowa. And today, the Hansen family is joining us, sharing their beautiful story today. Travis and Katie are our guests, sharing their story of their first adoption. And you mentioned earlier, Katie, that every adoption story is unique. They're not the same. But what makes your story unique? Is there something about your story that your adoption story that you would say is unique?
I think every part of it to us is so unique, I do think, just one of the just maybe kind of basic unique things is that for LFS, Ruthie's adoption was the first one that they did in Illinois. They were solely did adoptions in Iowa. And she was the very first one that, since they had been approved in Illinois for her official adoption. So I think that's very unique. That's cool. They're also kind of expanding, now to Nebraska and kind of a little bit more widespread. I also think it's very unique that we're in close proximity to where the birth mom lives. So we were actually able to meet with the birth mom 3 different times before Ruthie was born. So just to have that opportunity to have face-to-face conversations, to get to know the birth mom. I was actually in the delivery room when she was born. We were in the hospital like that night. Ruthie was in our room and the birth mom was right across the hall. We were able to share in some of those really intimate, like early moments, and just have some really cool conversations and get to meet, some of her extended family and friend group. So all of those things to me are super special. And I hope we can, as Ruthie gets older and age appropriate, share those conversations and just let her know what an amazing gift of love, on both sides of adoption, from both angles, from the adoptive parents to the birth parents, birth mom. It's just incredible.
What was it like bringing her home?
That's also unique.
The fact that we had to, we were 5 minutes away from the hospital and we couldn't actually go home until Illinois had finished the paperwork. So we ended up having to travel 2 hours away to Katie's parents' house and spent, I think, 7 to 10 days there.
10 days.
So we couldn't actually bring her home for 10 days, even though we're less than probably 5 miles away from home where she was born. So, but getting her home, it was amazing. Getting everything, figured out at the time. We lived in a pretty quaint little house. So, having her right next door to us and, being able to, essentially be at her beck and call as soon as we got in the house was really fun.
So you mentioned your extended family. Who supported you through this process? You mentioned your pastor pointed you to LFS and the staff at LFS. Tell us more about the people who supported you through your adoption process.
I think Carrie Smith, our adoption. I don't know if we ever figured out what we were supposed to call our adoption agent. She was a huge help, a huge emotional support, just confidant, gave us great advice throughout, eased that waiting period. And we also had just a lot of friends. It was a story that we didn't keep to ourselves. We made sure that friends and family were all aware of what we were doing, the process or the part of the process that we were in, what was happening within, if there was an opportunity or, if we hadn't heard anything for a while. So, it was, just support throughout the process. And we've had a ton of support since Ruthie was born and bringing her home and just surrounding her with family, friends, and a whole bunch of love.
Mm-hmm. What have you learned in this process that is helpful for other couples and other families who would like to adopt or thinking about adoption?
I think, there is, some scary parts to it. Our relationship with the birth mom was always very good, but her extended family was, not totally on board with adoption the full time. So there were some stretches there where we weren't sure if this was going to go through. But at the same time, like the reward in the end is just so rippling in terms of we just thought we were going to gain a child through this. And obviously we did, but the effect of Ruthie on other people has been so strong. And I think, Travis mentioned that support that we felt from not only our, biological families ourselves, but just our friend groups in so many different avenues and circles that were so supportive. And then just their immediate love for her, once they got to meet her, and then just still now, right now we have a daycare situation where our daycare person broke her ankle in 2 places. So we've just been kind of scrambling to find people to help us out to provide some daycare. And tomorrow, Anne, a friend of ours from our small group, is coming to help us out. I just feel so supported by so many people, and they're their love, just for us as a family has just really been incredible.
What you mentioned earlier that you would like to adopt again. What did you learn in that process that will help you as you approach a second adoption? You said hopefully it'll be easier this time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just being patient, knowing that it is in God's hands and not ours. Being able to ride the entire process again, and again, this adoption is completely taken on a different, or this phase of our second adoption's taken on a different look, just because of everything that's going on in the world. So we don't know what the process and procedures are for this. So it's another unknown, which is kind of crazy. We thought we had it all down and knew what to expect, and then just a huge curveball gets thrown into it. So, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be easier. It's just a little more expected, I guess, of what we're going to go through.
Yeah, I think we're prepared to, again, ride whatever roller coaster this is. I think that there'll definitely be some stretches along the way, but the wait time isn't as grueling. I don't feel like right now, just because, first of all, Ruthie, consumes us and is a little bit of a deterrent, in terms of us just waiting. But then also just to know, that God has a plan and we're ready to, abide by that, whatever that is.
It sounds like you've learned a lot of patience in the process, in the adoption process. And as new parents, that's a wonderful gift to have. Oh, what a beautiful story. And I'm so grateful that you were willing to share this story with us, and that Ruthie has a wonderful family to grow in now, and hopefully maybe some siblings, a sibling to join her in the not so distant future. I'm so glad that Lutheran Family Service was a great partner for you in this, and that your pastor pointed you to them. What a joy to hear pastors pointing to a great resource like this, and to hear that your pastor did that for you. Travis, Katie, thank you so much for being our guest on the Coffee Hour today and sharing this beautiful adoption story with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.